What's up everybody? Welcome back to another tutorial on how to create Jacek Jeznack portfolio website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. In our last tutorial, we created this homepage, but in this tutorial, we are going to take a step forward by building this portfolio section. And if you haven't seen the video that I made on how to create this section, the link will be in the description, so you could actually watch how to create this section before you actually catch up with us by building this portfolio section. So like I said, with that being said, this is the home page section that we created in our last tutorial, but in this tutorial we are going to take a step forward, like I said, by building this portfolio section. So after that, in our next tutorial, we are going to continue by building the other sections one after the other until we finish this project together. So with that being said, let me show you what we have already in the folder. I really want to tell you that nothing has been changed except that I have added some couple of images which you can also have access to if you go to my Github profile, which will be in the description below. So if you have access to that folder, you will also get the updated images that is required for us to build the section that we really want to build in this tutorial. So with that being said, let me show you what we have already here. Like nothing has been added except what we have added in our last tutorial, which is all these things that you are seeing. But like I said, right after this scroll down div, we are going to start our part 2 section right here. Okay, so the same thing is applicable to our CSS. So right after the stylings that has been added to this scroll down div, we are going to start our part 2 section right here. And the same thing is applicable to our JavaScript, and nothing has been changed, and we are going to start our part 2 right away. So with that being said, the first thing that we really want to add is section with ID of section work, like so. So inside this section, we're gonna have a div with a class of header, and inside this header we're gonna have h2 with the text of my portfolio. So right after this div, we're gonna have a class of text zone 2, like so. And inside this div, we're gonna have another div. And inside this div, we're gonna have a paragraph. And I have already copied it out, like I said. And right after this paragraph, now before we enclose this paragraph, we're gonna add a break, and with the text of interested to see some more, and then visit. We have an anchor tag with an empty value, and we say my work. So possibly this link will direct them to another site, and this is what we are going to have right inside this div. And right after this div, we're gonna have a button like so, this button. But in our last tutorial, we've already created the same button, but all we have to do is to go back to the section. Here we created the button, this section right here. This is the contact button. Okay, so all we have to do is to grab all this code. Let's grab it very well. Let's grab this code and let's come right under this place, and let's put a comment as well. Contact my portfolio button, yeah, like so. So right after this, we're going to paste all all the codes that we just copied. And right after this code, after this div rather, we're gonna have a class with a name of fake big 2, and inside this div we're gonna have a text of work. All right, so basically this references what we have right here, this big giant text, and all we just did right now is the text, the portfolio heading, the text, and then the button. Okay, so this is what we got so far. So all we have to do now is to go to our style.css and start styling them before we actually continue doing our stuff. So the first thing that we're going to do is to select this section, which is the section work. Okay, so let's select the section work, and so we set the padding. All right, 5 rem from the top, we have 0 from the right, we have another 5 rem from the bottom, and 1.5 from the left. Okay, 1.5 for the rem. And the next thing that we're gonna set is the position, and we'll set it to relative. So right after that, we're going to select the header. Okay, so we have the ID of header. No, my bad. We have ID of header, and inside this header we're gonna set the font size to 2 rem. The color will be this color, and then we set the margin bottom to about 30 pixels. Okay, so let's see what we've done so far. Okay, let me minimize it. Okay, so this is what we've done so far. All right, and one thing that I really want to tell you is that we are actually creating for mobile device first with the with this viewport of about 475 pixels. If you really want to make it more responsive, you will have to add some other media query rules for it to be responsive in all mobile devices. And in our case, in this tutorial, we are just going to create this viewport of about 475 pixels. And if you really want to make it responsive, like I said, you'll have to add another breakpoint so as to make it responsive. So with that being said, let's actually minimize this so that you'll be able to see what we have been doing so far. So the next thing that we have to do is to target this text right here. Okay, so we want to target the text and the text like so, and you have to add some values to it. So the target D, you have text zone, and then the P, you have text zone 2, and then the P. So we want to set the color is already white. We want to set the line height to about 1.5. Okay, so now if you check it out, you can see that they are well aligned. And the next thing that we have to do now is to style this text, this fake big text right here. I'm gonna show you this fake big text. You have to style it. Let's copy it, and then let's come back to our CSS. And what we have to do now is to set the font size to about 12 rem. Okay, the font weight like so will be 700. The position will be absolute. Okay, so we have to set the color to we have 2D, this color, and then left will be 10 pixels. We have bottom will be minus 70 pixels, like so. And then we have our letter spacing of -10 pixels as well. And let's check it out. Let's see what we got so far. And this is what we got so far. All right, so now we can see that currently the text is the button is behind the text. All right, so we want the text to be behind the button, so all we have to do is to set the z index to -999. all right, and now we realize that now the text is behind our button. So the next thing that we have to do now is to actually do this thing right here. So what we have to do now is to go back to our style.css, our index rather, and now we will have our magical wall section. Okay, magical wall section. So this is the magical wall section. Okay, so this is what we're going to create right now. We are going to have an ID of home, magic wall, like so. We're still gonna have a class of fake magic wall, like so. Let me actually expand it, and inside this you have our UL and our li, and inside our li tag we're gonna have a div with the class of magic wall and magic wall item, like so. And we're still gonna have another class name of lazy load, like so. So inside this div we're gonna have our image. Okay, we're gonna have our image, specify the file path, and this image there's last week this image. Okay, so the alternative name is image, and right after this image we're gonna have a div with a class of hover content. Okay, so this div will be empty by default. Okay, and right after this div we're gonna have our anchor tag with a class of color box. All right, so this is what we're really gonna have inside this div. But since we have multiple images, so all we have to do is to copy this thing several times so as to make sure that we achieve what we want to achieve. So if you realize this project, we have 10 images, and currently you only have an image, this big image, and all we have to do is to copy it several times so as to get the exact value of this. And after copying, we're going to start styling them. All right, so like I said, let's grab everything that we have right here, Ctrl+C, and now we're gonna paste it 10 times. All right, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what we have to do now is to change the image, and I don't really want you to be looking at me changing the image one after the other, because if I show you what we have right here, you see that we have a bunch of the same images. And what I really want to do now is to pause the video, and I'm going to change the image one after the other. Okay, so I hope you also pause the video and start changing the image one after the other, so that you won't be looking at me typing it out from scratch. And if you don't know how to change the image, all I mean by that is by deleting the name of the image that you have right here, and specify another image to replace the image that we have added. Okay, so pause the video now and change the image. Now I have already changed the image of each li, and I added some comments to specify which section, which li section is which. And if you are seeing this, you probably know that this magical wall 4 belongs to this single li that you're seeing up here. So now if I show you what we already have inside our browser, you realize that we have a bunch of different images, and what we have to do now is to begin styling them one after the other. So the next thing that we have to do is to go back to our style.css, and right after this we are going to select, the first thing that we're going to select is the magical wall, like the fake magical wall, right, that you're seeing right here. So let's copy it, let's come back to our CSS, let's paste it, and right after that let's set the background color of these to this color, RGBA. We have 255, we have 255, 255, and we have 0.1. Alright, so this is the color that we want to have for our magical wall. And now we have to set the UL, fake magic wall, and then the UL, we have to set the list style to none, and then the display will be flex. Alright, the display will be flex. You have to set the display MX, should also be the flex box, and then we have display WebKit, should be flex as well, and now it should be a WebKit box like so. And then we have to set the flex wrap to wrap. Okay, so whenever the space does not contain the remaining image, it will move down to another line, and that is it. All we have to do now is to target the li. We have fake magic wall UL and then the li. And what we have to do is to set the width of every image to about 161 pixel. So when I calculated it, this is the value that I got. So let me actually show you. Alright, let's refresh. So you have to set the image to 161, and I'll set the height as well to about 160 pixel. We have position will be relative. The position will be relative. So now, as you can see, that we have our images, which is very, very, very cool. Now we have to do is to set the overflow to hidden, and basically I will show you what this overflow does. Currently I will comment it out, and then I will show you when I had the other functionality. So what we have to do now is to set the display. We have list item. Okay, so what we have to do now is to target the magic wall item. Okay, we have to target the magic wall item. So which means we have mistakes right here. We didn't spell it correctly, so we have to delete all this n that appears at the end of the item. Alright, so let's keep on deleting them. The n, it should be item, not what we have written. So let's make sure that we get rid of all these letters, like so, like so, like so, and that's all. So all we have to do now is to select this magic wall item that is inside our li. Okay, so what we have to do now is to go back to our CSS, and then let's target fake magic wall and then the magic wall item. So what we have to do now is to set the position to absolute. The top will be 0, the left will be 0, the bottom, you guessed it, to be 0, and then the right as well will also be 0. And what we have to do now is to set the transition. We have the transition, and then we have transform like so, and then we set the you have to set the duration to 0.5 seconds, and then the opacity 0.5 seconds, and then the opacity should be 0.5 seconds as well. Okay, if you really want it to be responsive in all browsers, I mean, if you want this to be applicable to all browsers, all you have to do is to set another transition, and then you set the transform like we did, 0.5 seconds. Okay, we have our comma right here, and then right here we have our comma, and then we set the opacity as well to 0.5 seconds, and that comma, and then we set the WebKit. Okay, the WebKit transform like so, and then we set it to 0.5 seconds as well. Okay, so this is basically all you need. Let's write it very well. So we have our transform, and then we have the opacity, and then we have our WebKit transform, and then we set the duration as well. So by that, it is also going to be applicable to some browsers, but if you really want it to be applicable to all browsers, you'll have to add some other things. So it's actually very boring to me to be writing it out like that. So we are going to continue. So far, I really want to show you what we've done so far, and this is basically what we have right here. Okay, so what we have to do now is to target the image itself. So let's target the image. We have fake magic wall, and then the img. So in here we're gonna set the image to 100%. Okay, we're gonna set the image to 100%, and then we set the height to 100% as well. Okay, so now we have our image right here, and then we have to set the object fit to cover so that the image will be well aligned inside these boxes. All right, so the next thing that we have to do now is to add some transition to the image. So what we have to do is to call on the fake magic wall, and then the ul and li. So whenever we hover this li tag, li item, okay, we want to set the magic wall item, which is the div that contains the image and some other things that we're gonna add later on. So we want to set the transform to scale 1.14 like so. Okay, so now if I hover it, you realize that this thing is applicable to it. And then the reason why I told you that our overflow should be commented out was that if we add this overflow, which means you're not gonna see the overflow of this image. Okay, which makes it very, very, very cool. All right, so the next thing that we have to add now is to add some other thing like the ms transform, so that this thing will be the ms transform, so that it will be applicable to all browsers. Scale 1.14, and then the same thing with the WebKit transform like so, which is the same thing, 1.14. So what we have to do now is to target our class of this color box. We want to target this class, so let's copy it, And let's go back to our CSS. And what we have to do now is to call on our fake magic wall as usual, the li, and then we have the anchor tag. Since the class name is inside a anchor tag, so we have to call on the anchor tag and then paste in the class name right here. So we have to do is to set the display block, all right, and then we set the position will be absolute, the top will be 0, the left as well will be 0, the width will be 100%. Let me minimize it so that you will see what we're doing. So the width will be 100%, the height as well, okay, the height as well will be 100%. So now we have to set the image. Let's call on the image, the background. Okay, we have our URL, and then we have to locate where the image is in our folder. Okay, so now we have to select the image that we want. So the image that we want in our case is circle png. Okay, so this is the image that we really want. So let's make sure that we scale it very well. So we're gonna set the opacity to 0. So by default you won't see any image right here. Okay, you won't see any image. And now let's set our transition. Okay, we have the transition, we have all 150 milliseconds, and then we have timing function, which is out, like so. So we have to set the old transition as well. Old transition, we have let's copy all this, let's paste it right here. Okay, and then we have our WebKit transition, like so. So let's copy everything that we pasted, let's paste it right here, and now we're going to go. So another thing that we have to do is that we want to set this transform. All right, let's set it transform, let's set it to scale 0.6. so like so, the size of this let me comment this out. So the size of this color box will be 0.2, which is somehow small, and then the opacity will make it disappear. And what we have to do now is to say, whenever we hover over the color box, so whenever we hover over the color box, we want to increase the size of the color box. Okay, so we have to do now to call on fake magic wall ul and then li. We have our anchor tag plus our color box. Okay, so what we want to do now is that whenever we hover over this li item, okay, what we want to do is to set the transform, all right, and then want to set the scale to be 0.7. okay, let's actually resize this and set it to 0.2, and this one should be 0.6. okay, so now whenever we hover over it, we should actually get what we want, but we have to set the opacity back to 1 because on this line we set the opacity to 0, but whenever we hover over it, we want to increase the scale size of the image, and then want to set the opacity to 1 so that it will be visible. So now if I hover over it, you realize how nicely this thing is, the over effect is so amazing. But now what you're currently seeing is this thing is what is repeating itself. So what we have to do is to come back to the image, and then we're gonna set this value no repeats, and then we're gonna set the item to center. So when I overwrite, you realize that the repetition of the image is completely gone, and this is what we currently have right now. So the next thing that we have to do is to make it responsive on bigger screens. Like I said, if you really want it to be responsive on all mobile devices, you will have to add some other breakpoints, which is very necessary. So in our case, we are only doing the responsiveness of this viewport size and on bigger screens. Okay, so what we have to do now is to go back to our media query section. So we actually go back to our media query section. All right, scroll down, and right after this this scroll down class name block that we have right here, right under this, we're gonna add some functionality for our fake magical word and so on. So in our media query section for bigger screens, the first thing that we have to select is the section work. All right, so we want to set the width to about 85%, and then the margin will be 0 pixel from the top. We have 30 pixel from the right. We have another 0 pixel from the bottom, and then we have auto from the right. Okay, from the left rather. So right after that, I'm gonna set the display to flex. All right, and then the flex direction will be column. Okay, the flex direction will be column. So if we check it out right now, let's maximize it, and now you should realize that this thing is like so. Let's go back to it. Oh, let's actually change this to row. Let's see what we got so far. Okay, and this is not what I'm supposed to style. So let us go back to it. Let's change this to column, and let's see what's going on. Oh my bad, this is not what we're supposed to style. So the main thing that we're supposed to style is the text zone. Let's go for text zone 2, and let's set the display to flex, and justify content to be space between, and align items to the center. And the main reason why is that is because if we go back to our index, and you realize that this text zone encapsulates our text and our button right here. Okay, the text and the button. So we can actually set the display to all these elements that is inside this div. So now if we go back to our code like so, you realize that this is what we got so far. All right, this is what we got so far, and what we have to do now is to go back to our CSS, and right after this we're going to target the header, and then we set the font size to about 2.5 rem. Okay, and then we'll also have to target the P. So we set the text zone 2, and then the P tag, we want to set the width to about 700 pixel, and then the font size will be 14 pixel like so, and then we set the line height to about 1.5 rem. So the line height will be about 1.5 rem, and this is what we got so far. Let's see, and as you can see, this is what we got so far. So the next thing that we have to do now is to make this text to align to the right, and then we increase the font size of this, the size of these images. Okay, so let's do that. So let's target the the class name, it's called the fake big 2. And let's set the font size to about 25 rem. Okay, so the font weight will be border. Okay, the font weight will be border. But you know what, let's actually set the font weight to about 700. Okay, so the left will be 560 pixel, and then the top will be 0. The top will be 0, like so. So let's check it out. Let's see what we got so far. And this is what we got so far. All right, this is actually what we got so far, which is very, very, very cool. So the next thing that we have to do now is to make sure that we create some space between the sidebar and then the image, and then we are going to increase the width of the images. So to do that, we have to go back to our media query section. Let's target the fake magic wall, all right, like so. And then we have to set the padding left to about 8.5 rem. So when I calculated it, that is the value I could get. And right after that, we're gonna target the UL and then the LI. We're gonna set the width of each LI to about 242 pixel, and then we're gonna set the height to about 236 pixel. Okay, so if we go back to our browser and check out the image, and this is what we got so far, which is very, very, very cool. So we created some space between the navbar, and then we increase the size of this width, and it's all amazing. Okay, so in our next tutorial, we are going to create another section, and we're going to create this section, and then these cards right here, blog section, which are very, very, very amazing. And for all of that and more, I'll see you in our next tutorial.